Hello and a very warm welcome to everyone joining us here as we take a closer look at Germany's most prestigious cup competition, the DFB-Pokal. It's a cup like no other, with teams from the top three divisions thrown into the same hat as teams from the 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th division as well, making for some memorable moments and some memorable matches. We've got a lot to cover, so let's see what we've got in store. Gonzalo Castro takes on his boyhood club Leverkusen with VfB Stuttgart. Klinsmann returns to German football and the DFB-Pokal in charge of Hertha. Saarbrucken go into round 3 with a new manager at the helm. And we turn back the clock with Bayern Munich and Vestenbergskreuz. So plenty to cover, plenty to talk about, and here to talk about everything with me, it's Tom Midler. Tom, pleasure to have you here. The first two rounds, well, no surprises there. The DFB-Pokal offering up some fantastic matchups, some memorable moments already. What were the standout moments for you from those first two rounds?
Well, there were a couple of things for me. First of all, Dynamo Dresden taking 35,000 fans away to Hertha Berlin. What an experience that was. What an atmosphere. But for me, that was even pipped by SV Atlas Delmenhorst. They're used to playing in front of around 1,000 fans, but not this time. In round 1, they drew local illustrious rivals Werder Bremen, and they were able to take 41,500 fans to the Weserstadion, just 10 miles down the road. They sold 23,500 tickets in pre-sales for that match already on day 1, and they ended up selling out their stadium, well, the stadium of their opponents, Werder Bremen actually. There was no upset, they lost 6-1, but what an experience for everybody anyway. Tom Schmidt with a goal there as well to keep the Atlas fans happy.
Well, I mean, it just sums up the DFB-Pokal, doesn't it? When it comes to fans, you can't really compare it to cup competitions in other European countries or other European leagues. And I mean, round 2 just underlined that yet again with Borussia Dortmund against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Two big first division teams going head to head. The fans didn't disappoint there either, did they?
No, not at all. So we had the overall attendance record for round 1, the individual game attendance record for round 2. And let's not forget Bayern as well. You know, you mentioned two of the biggest sides in there. Bayern came up against Bochum, and they were almost victims to an upset themselves.
Yeah, very nearly so. Gnabry and Müller saving Bayern Munich in the second round of the competition, very nearly going out to what would be considered one of the underdogs, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Late goals. They were trailing until the 83rd minute, but they did what it takes to get through in the end.
And speaking of underdogs, well, we've put together a nice little clip to sum up everything that they've brought to this year's competition.
It's the cup competition that opens the door to teams of all sizes, with German football's underdogs looking to take down one of the big boys and make history. When David and Goliath go head-to-head, it's usually the latter which has the last laugh. However, there's never a shortage of upsets and drama, and the stage is always set for both the heroes and the villains. The DFB-Pokal has always been the setting for memorable moments as well as emotional reunions, as Goretzka, Grosskreutz and company all took a walk down memory lane. The underdogs have gone above and beyond again this year by giving us goals, drama, a roller coaster of emotions, and football at its very best.
So that the best of the underdogs, but not the best of the DFB-Pokal so far, because it's had ups, downs, still plenty more to come. But what was nice to see was that it has a soft side as well. Kevin Grosskreutz there playing against his former team, Borussia Dortmund, in Uerdingen, and had a chance to get his family involved as well. Fantastic scenes. Surely that's what the cup is all about.
Absolutely, yeah, what great images they were. Grosskreutz with his daughter on his shoulder, celebrating in front of the Dortmund fans with whom he shared so many memories and so many great experiences over the years. What a moment that was. What a nice draw that was. And that just sums up everything about the DFB-Pokal, with the chance of these smaller sides getting to play against the Bundesliga outfits right away from the get-go in round 1. And that wasn't the only family affair already that we've seen this year in the DFB-Pokal.
No, it wasn't. Mario Müller, the captain of 1. FC Saarbrücken, well, they take on a team which is led by his stepfather of all people. That should be a really interesting encounter for more reasons than just that. Yeah,
what a draw that is in the first place. When you're having a great season like Saarbrücken, I mean, what you want really is to draw a big Bundesliga side. They didn't get that. They drew Karlsruhe, and on the face of it, it might not look like such an interesting tie. But actually, with this family connection And with the situation that Saarbrücken find themselves in at the moment, it's a tie with a lot of interesting factors, not least that Dirk Lottner, the coach in charge of Saarbrücken's second round, he will no longer be in charge for their third round game. The club got rid of him despite being top of the league and into round 3 of the Cup. They felt that losses against key rivals in the 4th division might have scuppered their chances for promotion this season. That's what the club are aiming for, and that is why Lukas Kwasniok has been brought in. And just to add some spice to the mix, Kwasniok himself has a long history in the youth teams as a player and coach with Karlsruhe. So it doesn't get much more exciting than that.
An interesting encounter, to say the least. Let's hear what the new man in charge at Saarbrücken had to say.
My predecessor managed to beat his former club Cologne, a team close to his heart, and I wouldn't complain if the situation unfolded in the same way for me as well. The game is a special one, and we will be preparing for it accordingly. But once the players step over that white line on match day, it's an encounter like any other, and you simply try to win the game. It's an extraordinary situation. Normally there is unrest at the club when these things happen, but everyone is in good spirits and on track to reach our goals for the season. And I'm delighted to be in charge of the team and will do my best to get my philosophy across to the players. Just like the players, I will give my all to the cause, and collectively we will try to win the game. And should any celebrations be required, then I will let them happen naturally on the day. However, it would be careless to start thinking about celebrations at this early stage. It will be something very special for the team, and if it goes well, could be one of the club's greatest ever achievements.
So plenty of reunions on the cards for Saarbrücken in round 3, but there's plenty more reunions on the cards for the rest of the teams in the next stage of the competition. Next up, we're going to take a closer look at Gonzalo Castro, the man who used to be all about Bayer Leverkusen, is now a Stuttgart man, returning to play against his boyhood club. Well, the stories just get better and better, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. Another great draw in this year's DFB-Pokal. And we can't forget that Gonzalo Castro played a full decade with Bayer Leverkusen back in the day. Over 300 games, a hatful of goals for the club as well. Reached the DFB-Pokal final with them. Was unfortunately for him on the losing side back in the day. He did go on to win the DFB-Pokal with Dortmund though later on in his career, and he'll be very keen to write another chapter in his DFB-Pokal history now with Stuttgart, where, as you mentioned, he plays a very interesting role. He's one of the older players in that Stuttgart side. They're going well in the 2nd division at the moment. They've got Mario Gomez in there as well, another classic figure from German football. Both two of the more experienced members of that side, which blends youth and experience. And Castro's been shifted to the left-back position for his more senior years, and he's having a real impact there. 7 assists he's got this season, and he might be able to cause a few headaches for his old club, Leverkusen.
Well, it just goes to show that class lasts, and Gonzalo Castro, a perfect example of that. Moving on from one man who has won the competition to a man that hasn't, arguably a bigger German legend than Gonzalo Castro. That's no disrespect to Gonzalo Castro, of course, but when you're talking about Klinsy, the man they call Jürgen Klinsmann, of course, well, what is there not to say about him? He returns to German football. He returns to the DFB-Pokal, not as a player, this time as a coach and in charge of Hertha BSC.
Yeah, that's right. And so many honours on the list of Jürgen Klinsmann, but the DFB-Pokal is not one of them, neither as a player nor as a manager. He's got some history with the competition, though, but there'll be a lot of pressure on him now as manager of Hertha BSC. Of course, the final will be in the Olympiastadion in Berlin. That's what the Hertha fans want. They want to get there. They want to be there on the day for the DFB-Pokal finale, and they want to see their side lift the trophy with Jürgen Klinsmann at the helm. What a story that would be.
That would be a fantastic story. Jürgen Klinsmann, perhaps not exactly experienced when it comes to club football management. Very, very experienced on the international stage with Germany, the US team, but at club level, still a few question marks there. How do you think that might unfold?
Yeah, it's a really interesting return to club football for Jürgen Klinsmann. Of course, there'll be a big spotlight on him wherever he goes, especially back in Germany. But with the international career, as you mentioned, you have to remember that an international career is also tournament football. It's also knockout football. So he's definitely got the experience of that. And in many ways, you could see that being a good fit for Hertha in the DFB-Pokal. Perhaps that's their best chance of silverware this season. He has got a goal in the final himself as well. If you look way back to the 85-86 season, maybe he can instill some of those memories into his Hertha side and lead them to get some vital goals in this season's competition.
Well, Klinsmann might not have lifted a trophy, but he certainly knew how to find the back of the net. The first 2 rounds have produced some fantastic goals, and here's a look at 10 of the best. Well, some fantastic goals there, Tom. I don't think anyone can argue with number 1 there from Hennings. What a finish that was. But were there any goals perhaps not in the list, didn't make the cut, that still stood out for you?
Well, yeah, I won't argue with you on number 1. What a flick, what a finish. I'm sure he meant it.
Oh, definitely, definitely, no doubt about it.
No, certainly. Claudio Pizarro is the guy that I would have picked out. He wasn't in the top 10. He was close, scored a lovely goal in the game that I mentioned earlier against Atlas Delmenhorst for Werder Bremen. He came on in that game for a cameo appearance and got himself a brace. 2 goals, the second of which was a lovely finish from the outside of the area. But not only that, he was almost 41 years old when he did it. Still got some way to go, though, to be the oldest goalscorer in DFB-Pokal history. Karl Lampertin was 44 years old when he scored back in 1980 to become the oldest DFB-Pokal scorer. So still a few seasons for Claudio Pizarro if he wants that record.
Well, who knows? Claudio Pizarro always full of surprises. He might have a few more years and a few more surprises up his sleeve as well. We might get a few more surprises in round 3 of the competition. Let's have a look at some of the hottest matchups in the next stage.
The green and whites take on the black and yellows. Can Werder march through to the last 16 for the 3rd year running, or will Dortmund and their high-flying youngsters stop them in their tracks? 2018's Cup winner faces 2019's finalist when Frankfurt and RB Leipzig go head-to-head for the first time in the competition's history. After a derby win against Mainz and a nail-biting penalty shootout victory over Nuremberg, can the giant killers from Kaiserslautern make it 3 from 3 against Düsseldorf? It took 9 penalty takers to seal the deal in Kiel and secure Fell's place in the last 16 for the first time in their history. But will the fairy tale come to an end against Union Berlin? Hoffenheim have had to wait 5 years to get back to this stage of the competition, where lying in wait to the defending champions, Bayern Munich. After beating them in the Bundesliga this season, can Hoffenheim repeat the feat and silence the German giant?
So there we have the fixture list for round 3 of the DFB-Pokal. Still plenty of room for upsets. Some big teams going head-to-head. One game that stands out in particular, Tom, Werder Bremen against Borussia Dortmund. A game with two teams that have a lot of history in the Bundesliga, even more history in the DFB-Pokal.
Yeah, absolutely. And they met just 12 months ago at the exact same stage of this competition. At that time, it was at the Signal Iduna Park, and Werder Bremen were able to cause an upset, winning that game on penalties. It went all the way to extra time. It took a 119th minute equaliser from Martin Harnik to force the game to penalty kicks, and that is how Werder Bremen did it. BVB will definitely be out for revenge this time as they go away. Bremen might be struggling in the league, but Florian Kohfeld's side tend to do well in cup competitions. They'll be a difficult proposition to beat this time around.
Well, perhaps struggling in the league, the DFB-Pokal writes its own rules, as the saying goes. But like you say, they're going to have a tough time against BVB. Very young, very dynamic team. And now they've added Erling Haaland to that young and dynamic front three. I mean, what kind of damage could he do to Werder Bremen?
Yeah, so much damage. What an exciting proposition he is. It's great to have him in the world of German football. And he has an explosive impact wherever he goes. We saw that on his Champions League debut with Salzburg. We've seen that on his Bundesliga debut with Dortmund. 5 goals already, less than an hour of football played in Germany. Watch out for him to get a goal in his first DFB-Pokal game. Haaland tends to score on his first game in each competition that he plays in. Why would it be any different this time?
Well, a mouth-watering encounter indeed, but it's not the only one. Frankfurt taking on Leipzig. Frankfurt with their own history in the competition, very recently being crowned champions 3 months later, then being knocked out in the first round of the competition. I mean, sometimes you couldn't write it, but the DFB-Pokal just keeps delivering these stories, moments and memories. How do you see it unfolding this time for Frankfurt? I mean, it's anyone's guess, isn't it?
Absolutely. What a crazy cup history that Frankfurt have just in recent memory. The winners just 2 seasons ago, as you mentioned, knocked out by Ulm just a few months after that. And now they play last year's finalists, RB Leipzig. That should definitely be one of the most interesting ties to look out for this time. 2 high-flying sides in the Bundesliga, especially Leipzig, of course, who are top of the table at the moment. And Eintracht Frankfurt have a great cup competition history, not just in the DFB-Pokal, but of course, they were close in the Europa League in the last couple of years as well. So that should be a great cup tie.
And last but not least, when we look at the fixture list, the one that really sticks out for me is about the underdogs, the ultimate underdogs, SC Verl. What an amazing first 2 rounds in the competition. Their journey continues against Union Berlin. What do you take from that fixture?
Yeah, in many ways, SC Verl have been the sensation of this year's DFB-Pokal. 2 ties that they've come through already. They've beaten Bundesliga opposition in the form of Augsburg. Then they played Holstein Kiel. They came through that one on penalties. Nobody is going to want to go to the Poststrasse for round 3. And SC Verl got exactly that, the home draw that they wanted. They're playing Union Berlin now. Berlin, of course, will be the heavy favourites in that one. But with the magic of the cup run and their home crowd behind them, who knows what SC Verl could do. If they go a step further, they'll be writing history for the club, and that would be a really amazing tale. It's already been an amazing tale for them. But we shouldn't forget Kaiserslautern as well. They're down in the 3rd division, and they've drawn Fortuna Düsseldorf for the 3rd round. The Fritz-Walter-Stadion is not somewhere that you want to go when you're struggling in the Bundesliga, so there's definitely potential for another banana skin there between the 1st division and the 3rd division.
Well, speaking of banana skins, speaking of upsets, one slight upset in the competition does come to mind if we turn back the clocks, and a small club by the name of Bayern Munich comes to mind as well.
Yeah, first round exit for FC Bayern Munich back in the 1994-95 DFB-Pokal against Vestenbergskreuz. That club isn't too well known anymore. They folded a year later and merged to become Greuther Fürth, who have a cup history of their own, a storied history, just seconds away from a penalty shootout in the semi-final a few years back against Dortmund. But that was a massive sensation when Bayern were beaten in that first round. A Roland Stein goal was enough to ruin Giovanni Trapattoni's start at Bayern. Maybe there'll be some upsets of that level in this year's DFB-Pokal as well.
Well, the ups and downs of the DFB-Pokal continue on the 4th and 5th of February. We'll be there for every kick of the ball. Until then, take care.